I'm Greg Hunter. Welcome to USAWatchdog.com for the weekly news wrap-up number 416 for Friday, the 24th of January, 2020. It's been a while since I've done one of these things, folks. A reason why I did take off a little time, but I didn't want the site to go dark, so I kept doing interviews, but I wanted to get some time off. And the wrap-up, as low-tech as it looks, is the thing that takes the most time out of my week, because I work on it all week long, and it's hard to put it all together. Just one guy holding up pieces of paper to make sure the sources are done right and everything's done well. But I'm back. This is going to be a long wrap-up, and I'm only talking about two stories. I'm not talking about the Second Amendment rally in Virginia, which was a pie in the face to Governor Northam, because nothing happened. But I just want to talk about this impeachment thing. This is why I came back on. I was going to wait till next week, but the impeachment thing, I want to talk about it. As I've told you in the past in the House, that the impeachment was a disaster. They couldn't even get all the Democrats to vote for it. And they lost a couple of members who flipped to being Republican, which I predicted. And they had total control of the impeachment process in the House. It was a secret room downstairs. They didn't allow questions from Democrats. It didn't allow witnesses. The questions, when they did get around to letting Republicans ask questions, they cut them off. They got too hot. They had a bunch of witnesses that were just hearsay witnesses, nothing that you could stand up in a court of law. They redacted transcripts. They withheld transcripts. They completely contorted the process, and you can read it for yourself in the impeachment bill where they laid out the impeachment inquiry. It was totally one-sided. That's a fact. They put it in writing. How in the world that the Democrats thought this would go better in the Republican Mitch McConnell-controlled Senate, I'll never know. And we still don't know what witnesses are going to have, but I think everything in the Senate's going to be a disaster. I mean, the hours and hours and hours of the Democrats making the same charges they did not prove in impeachment with one fact witness, Sondland, who was the guy that said, well, the president asked me, what do I want? And the president said, I don't want anything. I don't want no quid pro quo. Just have him do the right thing. Have the President Zelensky do what he ran on. This is a disaster for the Democrats. And now they're going to open up maybe the Bidens. This is such a disaster. And then they accuse the Republicans, and even the RINO Republicans got their backs up over this, that they're doing a cover-up. See, that's the tip-off, that they know this is a terrible case. They're already into, well, the Republicans are making a cover-up. It's a cover-up. They're already into naming this thing, this disaster, something they could try to, gain some ground with. The Republicans covered it up in the Senate. The case is awful. And it's even worse now that the president and his lawyers get their say. Not like the House. They're going to actually have some semblance of being fair, which the Democrats don't believe, but don't deserve it. But we are a Republican. The GOP can't do what the Democrats did. If they was just fair, it's a disaster for the Democrats. And again, the buzzword is cover-up. It's a cover-up. We need more evidence. They don't have any evidence. That's the problem. They need more because they don't have any. And even the RINO Republicans are going to have a hard time voting to remove Donald J. Trump, the leader of the Republican Party, from office on a bunch of made-up stuff that was really an op with a CIA agent, Eric Ciaramella. It was an operation. This guy's not a whistleblower. I've had Kevin Shipp on here who actually was a real CIA whistleblower saying this guy's a leaker. This is an operation. Oh, and you can't mention his name. You can't talk about it. Why not? So the Dem disaster in the House, the Sham impeachment, is now moved to the Senate. It's an even bigger disaster. And people are tuning it out. They don't think it's real. There's not a senator, a legitimate senator that you could go to in the background and go, hey, come on, do you really think he did anything wrong? And the answer is going to be, no, but we got to get rid of him. And look what's going on in the Democrat Party. They're panicked. I mean, you've seen the debates. It's one cuckoo, crazy idea. Do you think illegals should have health care, free health care, paid for by us, the citizens? Sanctuary cities, not working with ICE, wanting to tear down the wall, having open borders, no border patrol, to do away with the agency, raise your taxes, take away your guns, suppress your First Amendment rights, your Second Amendment rights, persecute Christian. I mean, this is what the Dems are running on. And then you have Bloomberg, who he got in the race because the field was weak. I mean, this guy's going to spend, he says he's going to spend $1 billion. He just had a campaign rally where he spent tons of money. He's got it. Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York, Bloomberg TV. He's spent tons of money. He got less than 50 people to show up to his rally. So they don't have any ideas. They don't have a solid candidate. I mean, they're talking about Joe Biden, given Donald Trump working against Joe Biden, his chief political competitor. He's dropping like a rock. And how dare Donald Trump go after their kickback schemes, bribery schemes, sedition, and treason? How dare he do that? Especially when it's a candidate from the other party. Paul Ryan once famously said, "I don't think Donald Trump understands how Washington works." I think he does. I think he knows exactly how it works. And that's what the Democrats are deathly afraid of being exposed for bribes, kickbacks, obstruction of justice, sedition, and in some cases, treason. I mean, they sold us out over in China, the Bidens. Got $1.5 billion. We haven't even really explored that, other than the fact they got $1.5 billion that Hunter Biden got $1.5 billion over in China. Why? His company. Why? What'd he do? And if you also look at the image, I think they were planning on flooding the zone in the southern part of the United States, and one battle after another, Donald Trump has cut that. So, maybe there might be some illegal aliens coming over, but flood the zone with millions and millions of illegal voters is what their plan was. Don't think it's going to happen. They already got 100 miles of wall built so far in certain areas to, make it harder and harder and have to go around and, to get across the United States, and bottleneck here and bottleneck there, and that's going to continue. Trump's won one court battle after another. That freaks him out. That ain't going to work. The ideas don't work. The candidates aren't any good. They're not going to be able to flood the zone. But what do you got? This stupid sham impeachment, a Hail Mary of Hail Marys. And how they thought this was going to, did they really think that they were going to get all these RINOs? They're going to get 20 some odd Republican senators to go, oh yeah, it's a total scam, awful case. These are all former prosecutors and judges and legal people, and looking at this going, you got to be kidding. They're freaking out. And now all they got left is voter fraud, and they're working that down, whittling that down too. They're going to have to do voter fraud. That's going to be their main ploy, because it isn't going to be the ideas. It isn't going to be the illegal aliens, at least not to the amount that they thought they needed with opening the borders and flood everybody in here. Illinois just came out this week. Yes, we let some illegal aliens vote in Illinois. Some? Really? You think there's some illegal aliens voting in every state in the union? Yes. How about California? They signed them all up to vote. So I just think that they've got a real problem. And they're desperate. And they're freaking out. What have I been telling you? How in the world can they get somebody to commit one felony after another at the DOJ, the FBI, the State Department, the Obama administration, because they're all up to their neck in sedition and bribes and kickbacks and treason, and Ukraine is just the tip of the iceberg. And as I said before, how dare Donald Trump cut off their kickback scheme and their way they're funding their families, themselves, the Democrat Party? How dare him ask about that? So some people are worried that the RINOs are going to vote down Trump, and I think even the most ardent Trump-hating RINOs are going to have a hard time after seeing this case where they're making the same allegation that they could not prove in the House. They didn't even have an actual crime in the articles of impeachment. And they're going, and then now the Trump lawyers are going to be able to talk? Oh, how in the world do they think that they're going to get a bunch of RINOs to vote Trump out of office and remove him from office. You know, it's impeach in the House and removal and trial and removal in the Senate. It ain't going to work. And I think it's backfiring. It's going to make him look like a victim. One of the things when I was an investigative reporter, you know, the bosses, whether it's ABC or CNN, back when they were doing real work, they would say, you know, be careful when you confront somebody. You don't want to turn them into a victim. Just be careful about how you are confronting people. And so this is that on steroids, you know, times 1,000, you know, how they're confronting Donald Trump and attacking him. He looks like a victim because he is. So I just think it's going to be hard for the RINOs unless they just want to say, yep, don't want to be a senator anymore. Yep, I'm out. I'm going to vote him out of office. Unless they have a real case, I don't think it's going to work. And I don't think any of this other stuff is working. None of this is working for the Democrats. Just checking my notes here before I move on. One of the things that came up with Donald Trump was tax cuts. He's thinking about having tax cuts. You know, and I know people out there are like, "Oh, tax cuts are going to explode the federal budget." Let's say this again, folks. Okay, I'm going to tell you it again. They never intend to pay back any of these trillions and trillions of dollars. They don't. They're not. They don't. It ain't going to happen. So whether he has tax cuts or it prints up another couple of trillion, by the way, we don't have a debt ceiling anymore. You know, to get us to 2021, that's where I think we're going. That's where I think this is going to get settled. But it could blow up ahead of time. I'll talk more about that in just a second. And so, you know, with the impeachment thing, it's ought to scare the heck out of every American. Because let's just look at this little headline here. Pelosi on impeachment. On impeachment, it's not a question of proof. It's about the allegations. I mean, think about that, folks. This is what the Democrats are doing with the Senate case right now. Talking about the allegations that they didn't prove. And then months ago, Pelosi says President Trump has to show the impeachment committee proof of innocence. And this is what, generally speaking, in the Democrat Party is that you're guilty until proven innocent, which is asked backwards to the United States justice system. You are innocent until proven guilty. And of course, they didn't prove this. And of course, if you listen to Nancy Pelosi, it's not a question of proof. It's about allegations. Remember the wrap-up smear? We make allegations. We put it in the press. And we merchandise it, and then the press spits it out, and then we use that against you, the wrap-up smear. She said that on camera. Remember that? That's what this is. It's just smearing him. And the mainstream press is just mainstream propaganda. It's just really propaganda. It's they should all be embarrassed if they think they're practicing journalism, because we know they're not. And so you got an awful Hail Mary impeachment process. It's not going to go the way they want it. They're already calling it, you know, a cover-up. You've got awful candidates. You got awful message. You got nothing working whatsoever. You can't even get a billionaire, Bloomberg, to try to, you know, steal this election away. Can't do that. The front runner is a communist/socialist, Bernie Sanders, and which I think Trump would love to run against. He'd eat him alive. But, you know, they're desperate because in the second term of Donald Trump, there will be a reckoning for the people that robbed us. And the economy is not doing as well as everybody thinks it's doing. Listen, I love Donald Trump. He has put off a day of reckoning. He's bought time. That's exactly what he's been doing. He didn't care about the deficit. He didn't care about anything but ramping up oil production and cutting regulations and repatriating big amounts of cash and getting us out of stupid trade things like, you know, the Paris Climate Accord where we were going to get creamed. He tried to get good trade deals with Mexico and Canada, although I'm not totally sold on the USMCA because we give up some sovereignty, but I think he wanted to cut off China from shell companies in Canada, which I've talked before, and in Mexico, and then using NAFTA to basically really work us over and export their unemployment to us. So I don't think the economy is doing as good, although as everybody thinks it is, but it is doing better than what Hillary would have had the economy. We would have been imploding surely by now, which I think was the plan. Larry Kudlow out, the president's economic advisor, talking about the Fed's T-bill purchases are basically QE. I mean, nobody's as Rob Kirby said, nobody's buying U.S. Treasury. So basically, the Fed is buying it to float the U.S. Budget and economy. They're also in the repo market, and I've talked to Martin Armstrong. He's going to be the guest for the early Sunday release. He's written a book that really dovetails into this really well. He talks about manipulating the world economy and the rise of modern monetary theory, that's at MMT, and the inevitable fall of classic economics. I asked him straight out, is this what they're doing in the repo market? Is that a problem? Or am I crazy? You're not crazy. It's a big problem. And he will explain why on the early Sunday release. But here you have Larry Kudlow talking about Fed's T-bill purchase BQ, and then you have this is at Davos, Switzerland. This is where all the economic bigwigs. So I can't believe he spilled that out. And then here you have Ray Dalio, who runs Bridgewater Capital, the biggest hedge fund in the world, says cash is trash. Investors should diversify portfolio with gold. Why in the world do you think he decided he'd say that at Davos, Switzerland, no less, on CNBC? Because they're going to keep printing money, and it's going to depreciate cash, and you should buy tangible assets, and stocks, according to Martin Armstrong, are considered a tangible assets, although they're sky-high valuations. But people will run into anything in a declining currency situation. They may run into everything. But Martin Armstrong says right now the dollar's doing well, and Trump would love it if the dollar would come down. He would love it. But it doesn't mean things are good. And he thinks, and I asked him flat out, do you think that they're trying to fight a global daisy chain of default? And his answer was yes. Now, listen, this is so big, somebody with not a lot of financial experience like me can figure it out. That there's a problem with the Fed taking over the repo market and injecting tens of billions of dollars every day into the market. And I think it's because they are afraid of a daisy chain of default. The collateral's no good, the bonds are no good, and they don't want them to default. He explains this in a long interview on Sunday, on the early Sunday release, Saturday night, Sunday morning. He explains it. But, Ray Dalio, back to Ray Dalio. Ray Dalio is talking about cash is trash, and he's not talking about somebody with with $500 or $1,000 or $10,000 in cash just to get through some rough periods and a credit seizure. He's talking about funds with millions, if not billions of dollars sitting on cash, like Warren Buffett. He's got 120-something billion sitting on cash. But these are all big players that work with numbers far bigger than I can work with. But if you're a little guy, what Ray Dalio is telling you is to buy gold, silver, have tangible assets, your house, your car, prepare yourself, because there's no way a guy like Ray Dalio, running the biggest hedge fund in the world, on CNBC at Davos, Switzerland, blurts this out about diversify portfolio with gold. For rich people, silver's too heavy and too bulky, so generally speaking, they have gold bars. But for him to be able to blurt that out, something's wrong. And obviously, with the repo market and the Fed taking it over, because that used to be bank-to-bank stuff, something's wrong. Martin Armstrong agrees with me. Something's wrong. And you'll need to watch the interview. It's about 40 minutes or so, 38 minutes. It's an excellent interview, and his book it actually plays right into this. And he doesn't get on a big buy my book. It kind of just happens towards the end of that by having one, because he's got a book. It's an amazing book from a guy that's guy flown all over the world to give economic advice to governments, and it just kind of dovetails into it about the 30-minute mark, which was relevant, and you'll get a good idea of what's going on. But the repo market is a problem. So now I want to just wrap this all up. You got the Democrats, this is Hail Mary, stupid, dumb, try anything impeachment. It was a disaster in the House, a bigger disaster in the Senate, now that the president his people actually get to talk and put on a case. No messaging, no good candidates for the Democrats, raise taxes, health care for illegals. They would not send drunk drivers. Joe Biden wouldn't send drunk drivers out of here, out of America. They protect criminal aliens. This is their message. Tear down the wall, do away with ICE. Did I tell you, raise your taxes? So Really not a good message. They're afraid of jail, according to Tom Fitton and myself. I've said that a while. How could you make all these? How could you get all these people? But anyway, I digress. And so, could they crash the economy as a last ditch effort? Number one, this fraud has been going on for a long time, long before Donald Trump got into office. Okay. Are they trying to stretch it out? And I say the answer is yes to 2021. That's what I think. Nobody's told me this. I don't have a source, but that's what it looks like to me, covering this for the last 10 years. Yes, they're trying to stretch it out. Can they stretch it out? Maybe, maybe not. Look what's going on the repo market. I don't think the Fed planned in 2019 to, wow, we're going to have to take over the repo market in September of 2019. I don't think they thought that at the beginning of the year when they just stopped raising rates, right? But frauds can go on for a long time. Look at Bernie Madoff. I mean, Markopoulos was complaining, writing letters to the SEC, who they were all busy watching porn. I kid you not, that's a reported fact. The people of the SEC, some of them were watching porn. Not a single person lost their job over the Bernie Madoff scandal. So Markopoulos is writing the SEC saying this is a scam. Of course, they were being helped by JP Morgan Chase, and JP Morgan Chase paid a $2.5 or $6 billion fine in restitution and to avoid prosecution. I bet you Madoff would love to have that deal. And so, but this went on for, a couple of decades. While people were complaining, Markopoulos is also complaining about General Electric, being a scam bigger than Enron. And of course, this is the guy that blew the whistle, was blowing the whistle repeatedly for years about Bernie Madoff. So he's got some street cred. And so Bernie Madoff, I mean, think about this. This went on for years and years while people were complaining. He went to the Hamptons one weekend, had a lovely weekend, came back in Sunday night, had a great night's sleep, walked into his office, and at 9:30 in the morning, the FBI cuffed him, and he hasn't been out of jail since. Frauds end quickly. How long can this go on? I don't know. But I guarantee you, in my days of working at CNN and ABC News, I did a lot of financial crime stories, and no matter how long they went on for, the one thing you can say about every single fraud is that when it was over, boom, it was over. Like Forrest Gump. Then one day it was over, just like that. Can you imagine Bernie Madoff going into his office on Monday morning after a lovely weekend at the Hamptons and thinking, I'm never going to see the light of day again. I'm going to be arrested by the FBI, and it's done. And that's the fraud that's going on with what's going on with the modern monetary theory and the repo market and tens of billions of dollars, and nobody in the world will even talk about it. I mean, I told you about the email where one of our writers said, I work for a big company, and we're afraid of even saying anything about what's happening in the repo market. We don't want to be blamed for taking down the economy. I mean, that's where we are. The Fed has to keep pumping. Can't raise rates. Going to have to lower them. Pumping. That's the economy now. Frauds end quickly. They all end quickly. So you should get ready and stay ready. And listen, and look no further than this in terms of you have a weak economy, and then you have a desperate Democrat Party, deep state, Luciferian, globalist, New World Order weasels. And the speech Trump gave in Davos, talking about how America first, and we're not going to submit to this climate change deal, and we're going to destroy our economy. We're not going to do that. That is like poison in their ears over there. Because now all the central banks want to include climate change in our idea of the things we're responsible for. Right. Okay. So if you add all that together, a weak economy and a desperate party and deep state, and that's not just Democrats, it's the deep state, globalist, New World Order, Luciferians, all the above. It's, they could crash the economy. You think I'm exaggerating this? I think that Donald Trump was early with this executive order. Remember this executive order? It's still in effect. This was issued on December 21st, 2017. I think he thought they were going to crash the economy on him, but I think, what they decided was, well, let's not do that. We'll lose a bunch of money, trillions. Let's see if we can get him out of office with Mueller or impeachment or any of this other stuff. And when that fails, I mean, think about this. The executive order blocking the property of persons involved in serious human rights abuse, that's human trafficking, and corruption. You mean, you like what's going on in Ukraine and China and bribes and kickback schemes? You mean things like that? And it's to protect the financial system of the United States. Folks, this is on whitehouse.gov. You can look it up for yourself. This is a source. This is a legitimate source. It's a national emergency to deal with that threat. He's talking, even the president back in December of 2017 was worried about him putting the screws on the deep state, globalist, new world order, evil, treasonous, seditious, fraudulent, corrupt, new world order people, and then them just crashing the economy. It's kind of like in military about dialing and calling it an airstrike on yourself. Okay, and that you're going to be overrun. They're going to kill every one of the people on your side. You get in your foxhole and you dial up and say, I need an airstrike right on my position. I need an artillery hit right on my position. And you hope you get down in your foxholes, and you hope shells don't land right inside the foxhole, and it kills all the people, overrunning your position. And that's a last-ditch effort. Would the global elite lose tons of money? Yes, they would. But you can't spend it in prison, can you? And so that's my wrap up this week about my snapshot about what's going on. And that is what I think is going on. And there is no stopping this Fed repo deal. John Williams brought it up weeks ago when he said, well, if the Fed has to get into the repo market and do what they're doing, they already lost control. So they can't do it and stop it. They've already lost control because I don't think they can stop it. Martin Armstrong will put a light on that in the early Sunday release. He is the guest. Thank you very much for supporting USAWatchdog.com with your comments and your donations. I really appreciate it. Also, the line that would get me fired on network television, fear not. Prepare yourself mentally, physically, above all spiritually. Fear not. God the Father and the Son, Jesus Christ, are firmly in control. Don't let these guys steal your good health, your good judgment, your faith. Don't let them steal it with fear. They're not that tough. Fear not. And get ready and stay ready. Thank you for supporting USAWatchdog.com.